Good evening, everybody. I'm Stevie Ringel, and I'm going to talk to you today about private military corporations. Voltaire once wrote that all murderers are punished except for those that kill in large numbers and to the sound of trumpets. This is an extraordinary claim that happens to be true in our modern world today as well. Private military corporations, or PMCs, do just this. They commit war crimes under the banner of a just cause. Now, some of you might not know what PMCs are, so let me tell you. Private military corporations are military corporations that operate on every level of our government's military, from intelligence gathering to combat missions. They are profit-driven businesses that only care about the bottom line, so they do their jobs cheaply and quickly. They do not care what innocent civilians they hurt in their path. After doing lots of research on this topic, I've come to the conclusion that in order to live in a more just world without these unpunished murderers, we have to entirely ban the use of private military corporations. In order to demonstrate this to you today, I will first address the two main problems that PMCs cause, and then go on to tell you why my solution of banning them entirely is the only one that is feasible. Let's start with the problems. The first main problem of PMCs is they push us into wars that we otherwise shouldn't and wouldn't be in. Now, I know some of you might think this is outrageous, but in fact, it's true. This concept is called threat construction. Basically, because PMCs conduct 95% of our intelligence gathering, according to former CIA Director James Woolsey, they control everything our government knows and doesn't know. PMCs completely run the show, according to Professor Leander of Political Science of USD, saying that private firms not only provide, but also analyze intelligence. Private translators and analysts are hired, and private firms are hired to assess exactly what we should do. In short, PMCs run the show. They tell our government what we should do and where we should fight. This might seem stunning to you, and in fact might be controversial, but there are many examples just in the last decades that prove this concept blatantly true. Let's take the Iraq War, for example. In 2002, Colin Powell delivered a landmark speech urging the United Nations to invade Iraq, saying he had solid sources that there were WMDs inside the Iraqi border. However, as we now know, this was not the case, and the result of this war was thousands of deaths and trillions of dollars spent. Now, these solid sources that Colin Powell referred to were actually sources from the CIA, that the CIA had gotten from private military corporations who were doing the analysis work. And the Senate committee put together to delve into this massive intelligence failure that caused this war, so the CIA's and the PMC's work was incorrect, overstated, or just plain false. We can clearly see there's an intelligence failure whenever PMCs do this kind of work. The problem here is that we don't have the power of oversight. We can't look into why these problems happen and investigate this further. PMCs operate completely on their own, aside from the U.S. Army. So we can't analyze what happened, what went wrong, who went wrong. All we know is that something happened, and that these same companies that caused errors are continuing to be employed. Now, this might just be one case, but it was a horrible war, and whether this was just a bad accident or deliberate push into war so PMCs could further get more contracts, the result was the same: thousands of deaths and trillions of dollars spent. Now, in addition to this lack of oversight causing intelligence failures, it also causes more problems. And I'm talking about war crimes of the highest degree. This is the second main problem that PMCs cause. They commit atrocities that go unchecked. They will use any means necessary to do their jobs and do not care about the innocent civilians they strike down in their paths. In 2006, Blackwater showed us how this has dire consequences. According to the New York Times, Blackwater guards fired into a crowd, killing 17 people that, according to reports, had no reason to be killed. We can think of this as the modern-day Boston Massacre, where tyrants with arms fired willy-nilly into a crowd when they didn't have to, just to keep control. However, not only have thousands been killed by PMCs in situations just like this, but even more have been raped. DynCorp, the name that Blackwater went by after the shooting scandals, has raped even children. According to the Huffington Post, DynCorp contractors have been involved in sex scandals in Bosnia, where they raped even 12 to 15-year-olds and then sold them into gang rape slavery. This is atrocious. We cannot allow this to happen. Even further, 8 out of the 10 leading PMCs do not even define what sexual abuse means in their employee contract. This means there's absolutely no oversight or regulation against these PMCs from raping innocent children. Now, you might just be thinking to yourself, let's regulate these PMCs. But the DoD, your DoD, says this is impossible due to the area and nature of the work that PMCs do. How are we going to go into a desert and track down when one child is raped? It's nearly impossible to do. But even more staggeringly and more frighteningly, our government does not want to regulate PMCs, nor does any other government in the world. This is because, according to Professor Eliason of Queen's University, states conspire to create an ambiguous legal status for private contractors in an effort to export accountability. This means that the reason our government continues to employ PMCs is so they don't have to take accountability for their invasions. We can go invade Iraq, Afghanistan, maybe even Iran, and not worry about the collateral damage of those attacks. If we continue employing PMC, we sign a blank check allowing millions to be killed and raped without any recourse. Clearly, even if the wars are justified, these means are not. So, there must be a solution to this problem. And my solution is very clear. We need to stop using PMCs altogether. Clearly, we can't regulate them, and they cause massive harms. This is the only option. Now, what I'm calling for action is for President Obama to issue an executive order, as both the symbolic chief of staff and the legal chief of staff, to dismantle all PMC units and stop the U.S. employment of those units forthright. Now, I know this might leave some questions about the U.S.'s ability to defend itself, but let me answer those for you. There's basically only 2 reasons that people propose PMC use. The first is that the United States can't carry on the number of foreign missions it has without PMCs. We need them in order to invade Iraq and Afghanistan and still maintain safety in our country and abroad. However, let me disprove this claim for you and put your fears to rest. In 2004, according to Telegraph News, a pay discrepancy actually caused a crisis in the number of available soldiers, as PMCs were paying 500 euros, about 6 times more than the Army pays, just for soldiers to be prison guards. Now, what this evidence shows us is that the only reason PMCs have so many employees and the Army has so few employees is because of the massive pay discrepancy. The U.S. Army pays thousands of dollars a year, training thousands of men to be soldiers. Their skill set and profession is soldier, just like Professor Staub's skill set is as a communications professor. If he was told that he could be paid double the amount he currently is at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, he'd probably bolt and go work there. This is the same thing that PMCs are going through. However, if there were no PMC, and Professor Staub didn't have another university to go teach at, he would be stuck here at Vanderbilt. That would be his only option, a sad option, I know. Same thing happens for the Army and PMCs. If there's no other option, they will work as soldiers for the U.S. Army. That's their skill set, that's their profession, that's what's going to happen. What this means is there's no net decrease in the number of troops there are governing our global justice for good, as the Navy likes to say, a force for good. So we're going to have the exact same amount of peacekeeping troops around the world. The second main argument against PMCs, and the only other one that opposition to banning them could possibly propose, is the cost. However, I've just shown you in my Huffington Post analysis that PMCs are actually paid 6 times more than the U.S. Army soldiers. Furthermore, DynCorp, a leading PMC, brought in $1 billion in revenue just this quarter alone. That means that if we were actually to get rid of PMCs in our military budget contracts, there would be a massive reduction in the military budget. Now, I'm not up here to tell you whether it's fair that we pay our soldiers so little or not. All I'm telling you is the facts. If we didn't employ PMCs, our military budget would go down 6 times over. So in conclusion, what I've talked about today are 2 main things. The harms of employing PMCs, the intelligence failures that cause needless wars, and then the collateral damage that goes unchecked in those war zones. To end my speech today, I want you to do one thing for me. I want you to look to your left and to your right. Now, this is a room of college students who hopefully one day will be college graduates. However, due to the rising expenses of college, 27% of college graduates go on to work in the military. That means that if you look to your left and right, it's almost certain that one of the 3 of you will go out and working for the military. Now imagine a scenario where you or your classmate is ordered by a ruthless boss to bomb the home of an innocent civilian in Afghanistan, do we really want our classmates, our colleagues, to be put in that situation? Do we really want a world in which you might have to pull the trigger on an innocent Afghani child in order to satisfy a mean boss? I don't think so. I don't think that's the world we want to live in. And I'm not telling you, rather, that we should not wage war. I'm rather saying that we should wage war responsibly and in a way that doesn't cause such massive collateral damage. Thank you.